All right, welcome back. You are rocking with Women in Linux. We are, you know, doing our thing, and we got a new show. Taking over Vladimir's time at 2 o'clock. For reasons, I wanted to do this show a while ago. It's actually one of the shows that I wanted to do when we started Tech Stocks and Jobs, but it was just so much going on with techs and stocks and also just the number of jobs that was just coming out. I couldn't avoid that. Still can't avoid it. But today's show, we want to, you know, one, we didn't have a name. We thought about Linux around the world, and then we thought about Linux influences things and just different names. But D, I think you came up with a name right now, and I'll let you introduce that.
So while we were doing the last show, Tech Stocks and Jobs, Tam said something, and I was like, that should be the show name. Oh, I like Living Linux as well, Kevin. That was cool. But the Linux takeover. So what do you guys think about Linux takeover?
And if you got suggestions for names too, like Living Linux, you can drop that in the comments. And I'm gonna give you an overview about my vision of how I'm looking at this. It's just from so many different perspectives that like they say, and a lot of people don't agree. Atlanta influences everything. Linux influences everything. Is the thing here. That could be the name of the show. I don't. That'd be great for a T-shirt as well too. Maybe a logo. But again, we're just trying to come up. I'm just trying to come up with a name that's gonna stick. Because it's not gonna be like a one and done or anything like that. So let's get started on a couple of things. One, you know how to find us, womeninlinux.org. You know that you can go and hit connect. That connects you back with us on Slack. If you're just seeing us for the first time, you can find us on social media at Women in Linux Anything. Not at Women in Linux Anything, but Women in Linux across social media. You can hit learn if you want to learn more about us. Shop if you want to check out our shop, and if you need some merchandise or so forth, or you just want to give it away to a young kid that's growing up and never even knew about Linux. To be a great way just to spark conversation and dialogue. Another one is donate. Again, you don't have to donate with money. You can donate with your time, donate with your knowledge, and donate with your experience across the industry, and go from there. And then, of course, our blog and our directory. I got to get back on blogging. I'm just that's just not things I've done recently. And you can see what we've been all over the place. And here's some things sponsored. Also, don't forget we do have a sponsored link for IT Pro TV. I don't have the link in front of me for IT Pro TV, where you can go learn different courses or different topics in over um, not just SE Linux, but and Linux itself, but anything regarding AWS or any of the clouds. You can also learn a slew of project management information. As you can see here, they have Six Sigma, uh, uh, the beginning of the essentials of that class right here. You see it's 10 hours. Those that have their security plus or any of those other security things, you know, you need your CPEs as well too. So here you go. All right, so let's get started. So let's open up with this here. This was sent in to me in the email for Anita Borg Open Source Day on July 15th. You can see this is word for word of what they're looking for us to do. It is a free conference. Let me open that up here. Open up over here and bring it over. Um, Open source complimentary event from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. That's on the West Coast time, PDT. They got workshops, level up your skills and join the open source community, contribution track, a learning track. If you're new to open source, here's the speakers. Again, as you can see, we're not represented. I'm just going to say that. We need to be represented on this. Your GitHub account, and they got 490 tickets left, right? So again, when we're talking about open source, there's a lot of things surrounding about around that. Um, Agenda. They got a listing of what they're gonna go over for their on their agenda and so forth. And this is actually something that we at Women in Linux can do ourselves, like a 1 day track event on, just not open source, but just Linux and getting jobs, investing, and so forth. We can turn tech stocks and jobs, Women in Linux, and this into like a 1 day event. If we wanted to spitball in there, and then here's again their speakers. So that's a little bit about the first event, and it's open source event that they have. And then we've talked about open source a lot. All right, so let's get into things that I really want to discuss. So I don't know if anybody is familiar with like how open source looks in cars. So let me pull up my browser here so we can have that open and we can drop links here. All right, so I went back and looked at some stuff and was pushing around, but here Red Hat came out with their open source inside of they're building a Linux OS for cars, and this came out April 2020 of 21, April 27th of 2021, and they go on to talk about what their push looks like for this open source, and they partnered with I guess X IDA, so we could go look X IDA up. Functional safety services, and they um, look like they got a certification class, right? Um, as well. So I would do a deeper dive into this company as to one why they chose this company to look at, and let's see what they have. Life cycle services, system engineering, device engineering tools, automotive ISO. Let's go over here and look. And I will probably look and see, how long they've been in the industry as well too, as we look at this. So this is how Linux is, being pushed more into cars, right? I mentioned earlier before about automotive grade Linux and the different projects, but as you can see, automotive grade Linux project counts founding members such as Ford, Jaguar, Land Rover, Nissan, Denso. Newest member is Toyota as well. And so when you're looking at and where it comes into play is inside your infotainment system. So, the touch screens that you have in your cars and so forth, that's where that comes from. Right. So just, something to be aware of. All right. So here I went and dug a little bit more. I got more on cars as well too. And I think this one's a little earlier. This is from 2019. And they talk about how Tesla run their own homebrew Linux distros, and relies on automotive grade Linux as well too. So if you got a Tesla, there you go. And they went on a little bit more in here about AGL enables automakers and suppliers to share and reuse the same code. So that's why you see a lot of people probably release some of their code out there for improvement, especially with AGL, automotive grade Linux, to talk about like how can we really standardize across that. You also find this in bolts as well too. There's a AGL for bolts. So and then you can see the Mercedes van is also using the AGL. So I'm assuming they're talking about the Sprinter and and the Metris. Hope I'm saying that right. So Sprinter, the Mercedes, Sprinter, and yeah, Metris. Those vans right there are the ones they have touchscreen in them. And then they also have inside the touchscreen they also got apps that you can download for their minivan. Right. All right. So another one that I looked at was how is automotive grade Linux or Linux itself playing into autonomous cars? All right. So here we're Linux, Android, and autonomous vehicles. Can they all play together? And then they start going in this particular article. They start getting into, like, you see right here, the in vehicle entertainment, um, the Open Automotive Alliance based on Android platform, Android Audio. There's a part of that. AGL again, how they're all going to influence one reading from those. One with just big chips. One the cars are just big chips, right? One big mobile computer, right? So reading all the different chips, reading all these, from your sound to uh, you, just everything in your car is attached to some type of chip when we're looking at it. All right, so then, and remember, this is just various industries that Linux is in. So I went over here and checked out watches. So the Astro OS is an open source smartwatch operating system. And this one came out in 2019. I think there are a couple of other ones that have also come out, but it runs on the Linux kernel version and it is using an industry standard open embedded project. And then they go a little bit into it, and here's what the watch looks like. Install it at Astro OS on your smartwatch. So maybe you want to hack your watch. And then they got places or different watches where one probably could be hacked and two could probably be used on that. And then they got a list of supported watches. Let's go and look at that. So here's a list of the supported watches that you can use to install that on. So you can buy a watch and pretty much make your own watch if you wanted to, right? To yep, same with planes, but make your own watch, like your take your OS, customize it, and start controlling the watch of what you want to have in your own watch, right? You could do something where you and your family members, you have a specialty watch, but then you got to remember who's got to maintain that, you know and so forth. So just a little FYI, like, you could make your own watch and probably sell it. If you come up with different things, just again, somebody started somewhere making a Fitbit, right? And somebody started somewhere making the Apple Watch. Why couldn't you have your own brand of watches as well, where you start switching out, different skins, where you start switching out different bands and so forth? So it's
That's a good
something.
idea. I mean, that's a whole new
What'd you say,
business, especially.
Dion? What'd you say, Dion?
I said that's a good idea. That's a whole new business, and especially if they already have the watches there, all you have to do is really put your money in branding and upkeep of the OS. Make sure it's up.
Yep. And the one thing you can look at it from this way, you don't have to do it by yourself. Now you can just start hiring people, one for marketing, two for the business, and then three for people to try it and so forth. Maybe even start looking at it from a perspective of, like, I had a friend of mine that just did a sleep study, and then use the watch. So you could probably get into the medical aspect of it, of looking at it, just ideas, just finding little niches when we're talking about this, like, hey, how does you know I guess you're in the car for several hours. How does driving and sitting and so forth affect you? And you just spitballing here, but
I
just
think
things
it's a
that
cool little
you
project. I think it would be cool just to, start of just little watch enthusiasts and just see how it grows from there. Everybody get a little buy-in. I think it.
Yep, and two, you could, you could sell that. You can make an exclusive watch for companies. Like, hey, if they're really like into healthcare, like some companies are really pushing healthcare, you can brand it towards that company where you can say, hey, as an anniversary gift for your people, we can have a specialty watch made for X, Y, and Z. Just spitballing ideas there. All right. So the next one up, when we're talking about where is Linux at, Linux is also here. Thought this was a great article. We launched 32,000 Linux computers into space for the Starlink internet, right? And they go on to talk about how they used SpaceX engineers reveal machine learning is not used in Dragon and the Falcon spacecraft, but they go on to talk about how um, they used Linux. They also use, and this is not the first time. This is the second generation. As you can see, the 30,000 second generation satellites. There are already a first set of satellites out there that are using Linux, but they go on more to, like, the microcontrollers. And if you're familiar with Starlink, I posted the video about Starlink a few weeks back about how Starlink is now, to me, is in competition with Dish. I can see that becoming, well, no, Dish doesn't have internet. Dish subs theirs out. But people who are traveling in vans and so forth and want to have internet as they travel with their minivan or their Sprinter or what have you, that's where that comes into play. Or if you're in a remote situation where you can't get internet, the uplink and the upload and the download was pretty good from what I saw with Starlink. They also talk about here. See, last week, SpaceX Dragon spacecraft runs Linux with flight software written in C++, while the ship touchscreen interface is rendering using Chromium and JavaScript. Right, keeping it light. Let me see if they got anything. Oh yeah, SpaceX cybersecurity. So yeah, we're going relating cybersecurity and Linux back to each other there. Um, and it says get your CS degree or something similar. Spend time to really make sure you know how things work. I always tell you to understand that engineers who do well at SpaceX are meticulous in understanding how their code works, how the networks work, how Linux works, how hardware works, etc. I think that right there should be like the word of the week, right? That should be the word of the week there. Get real world experience building things and solving problems, hobby projects or internships. Which brings me to one of the things that I actually found was an internship. Let me pull that up and let me know if you're liking the content that we're dropping right here. Um, just drop a one and just let me know. All right, so here's a strategy associate internship at Sam Labs. Build and program your awesome innovations. All right. So I came across this. I don't know if you all are familiar with Uncubed. Sam Labs is the fastest growing award winning ed tech startup. And so here the role is coordinating. What'd you say, D?
I didn't say anything yet.
Okay. Coordinating internally for their launch and feedback, come up with actionable insights from data collected and so forth. And you can read through this yourself. For those that are looking, like, hey, how do I get in? Here's one way to get in at Sam Labs. When we start talking about internships, I'm gonna focus some on apprenticeships next week. But just a FYI there. All right, so um, let's go back to where we find Linux at and across just everything. Um, here, there's a post that I found on drawing a parallel between Linux and blockchain. All right. So again, we're talking about open source, distributed ledgers. I talked about Hyperledger. We talked about the Linux Foundation. and now we're talking about blockchain. So far we talked about cars, we talked about satellites, we talked about watches, we talked about having our own watch brand.
We
Um,
got to go into that. We got to dig a little deeper into that. I think they were feeling it. I think they
yeah,
were feeling it. Like we need us. At the tech stocks and jobs. We're always talking about startups and new businesses. And
right.
I think sometimes some concepts are abstract and are too big, but it just takes like church. Where two or three are assembled, you can make buildings. So let's do
Yep,
this.
yep. I wonder if you could have a distributed ledger on your watch. We could, huh? I'm waiting on Kevin to do that. Kevin, figure out how we can have a distributed ledger on our watch, so we can have our own watch brand with blockchain. Dang, we may have to take this recording down.
See
We may have to take this recording
what
down.
happens? All that oversharing. See, sometimes we need to have a little private powwow.
All right. So this in this article, they go into what highlights key components of innovative blockchain that we at Blocko are digitally working on. Let's pull them up, and I'll go there in a minute. So here, um, the Michael Tiemann GNU compiler. That's important for you to know. Um, Alan Cox and number two of Linux Torvald. If you don't know who he is, as you can see the name there. Um, let's see, and perhaps these technology was perhaps the most successful of all these technologies was Linux, blah 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 blah. All right. So this was what I also found interesting in this article. Some example of systems that this person in this article implemented with the team was a 10,000 node cluster at Deutsche Bank and HSBC to run core banking applications and to host high frequency and high volume finance modeling algorithms. High performance computing implementations at Ferrari to run Formula One win modeling simulations for a day. This is where Linux is at. This is where we're talking about just the different places where. So if I need to, if I'm a Model One company like Ferrari, I'm trying to figure out what's the how faster can I get my this next car that I'm about to sell for $650,000. What is that going to look like? So various mobile or internet centric solutions at Sony and Ericsson and Alcatel. I talk about Ericsson all the time. Right up there with Verizon when we're talking about 5G, when we're talking about these satellites and what that looks like. I spoke on this before with that. So this article is pretty expansive when we're talking about here. And we're talking about blockchain as well too. D, if you could drop that link, that's fine. But here's the platform player, everyone's blockchain enterprise. This was Blocko. And let's look at their products. You see what it's coming up here as. Okay, so I might have to do some translation on this one.
Are
And
you are you in Google?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But hold on, let me check out and see if the careers show up the same way.
And
Yeah,
can you do me a favor and drop the link in our chat? Because I'm looking at our trusty dusty sheet and it's blank.
it's called Correlation of Linux. That's the title on the sheet. And that link that's right under that.
Like
All
I
right.
said, our sheet is blank on my end. I don't know why.
Oh, I don't know why either. But
And I keep refreshing it. And so
all right,
I'm blind.
let me drop this. All right, so the next one up, I think I have to open this one up in Firefox. Um, all right, so let me do this. Next one up, robotics. Building security into your robots future with Ubuntu. This comes off right off their site, but I just want to show something here. Clear Path, I spoke on them before. In terms of robotics, Robotics, Kuka, Apex. I'm assuming that's PAL Robotics, Locus, and Fetch Robotics. And then you can go here and see all their partners. Manage. All right. And then here's a list of all the partners that they have. Right. So when you see this as partners, I will automatically start looking at them in terms of robotics as they're using Linux as well too. DoD, Iron Bank, Ericsson, Equinix, all right, Fairbanks. Like the list goes on when we're talking about this, right? So I'll just look at that, right? And so this is getting into building security in your robot's future with Ubuntu. And they have a white paper here. Pick the right OS for your robot, right? And then let's see if I can go over overview. If anything is something sticks out to me. Hardening long-term supported ROS with R, and then we got open robotics. Let's go there. All right, so powering the world's robot open platforms for robotics. We create an open software and hardware platform for robotics. We use those platforms to solve important problems and so forth. And I talked about this with, I think it was UiPath. We also talked about no code, low code. We also talked about RPA. So just just stuff to be aware of when we're talking about this. This is where that lends its hand to. Hope that made sense. All right. So next one up, um, I want to talk about. Let me see. Make sure. Oh yeah. Um, we're gonna talk about Linux and tablets. All right. Some of the four best tablets. This is just the four best. There are other ones. Ubuntu, I think, came out number one for this. But here is what they talk about. That yeah, say Ubuntu leads the way. Pine Tab, Raspad, and then x86 Microsoft Surface tablets. They have an ARM and an x86, and it's tablets written in a special version of Windows. But sadly, it doesn't seem as if Ubuntu Touch, which is designed for ARM, is compatible. They got Emperor Linux Raven, and then they have there's another article I saw floating out here. You could just look up Linux and tablets about some of the tablets that people have designed. Again, if you're making a watch, you can probably make a tablet that goes with the watch, brand it yourself, and create your own kind of not no kind of, but your own ecosystem of watches, tablets, thermometers, cameras, and so forth. So just creating your own ecosystem there.
There's IoT in it.
So I wanted to bring this up. It's not Linux related. It's more cloud related, and I found this interesting because it's true. The cloud ticker shock, and this came out June 26th, 2021. The cloud ticker shock explored. We're spending way too much. Some venture capitalists say. So they're actually thinking about like what would it, how much cost savings would we have to run a prim? And I think one of the things it says right here, this one right here, Andrew and Hortwitz partners discuss the paradox of long-term cloud adoption. You're crazy if you don't start in the cloud, and you're crazy if you stay in it, right? So as you continue on your journey with Linux and the cloud adoption, this often comes up is that ticker shot. Like how can we control our environment where we're not spending as much and so forth, right? So this just a little FYI there. All right. So the next place that we find Linux all the time, um, is with SRE and Linux. So what I did was there. I can pull this up too on this one. Let me pull this over. I went through and tried to find like the top 22 site reliability interview questions. This is a 2021. Y'all can take a dive into this. But again, it's still centered around Linux and still centered around um, SRE and just what where Linux has touch points at, and very heavily into that. But also, I found this right here that I thought was pretty cool. Let's see. This is a LinkedIn GitHub, and it talks about Linux basics, command line basics, server administration, Git, networking, Python and web, data, system design, metrics and monitoring, security. And then they ask you to contribute, and then they got an SRE community. And if you click there, they have you join the community with SRE. So let's click on that and go there. And now they got you can join. It's only 1,900 members right now to join the school of SRE, and what they're talking about, and get involved there. Let's go backwards. Um, Security, fundamentals of security, threat attack, writing secure code, metrics. They get into command line tools, proactive monitoring, best practice of monitoring observability, system design, scalability, fault tolerance, conclusion. All this runs still under Linux and so forth. Decompose this link and you can run with that. Next up, events. All right. So we all know. I always encourage you to go to events. With some things that are coming up, some events that are coming up that are virtual and in person. You got KubeCon coming up in October 11th through the 15th. They're going to be in LA this year. So those that want to attend, I encourage you to attend. We didn't do the LA one. We were in San Diego the last time we was at
Yeah,
KubeCon,
the
right?
coupon.
Yep.
Yes. Where I
It
got
was
the food poisoning.
so it was San Diego for last time, and this year's in LA. The last time we went, it was 10,000 people that were there. I don't know how many people they're gonna get this year.
It
Who
was
knows?
definitely ginormous. From the first one that we went to that was in Seattle. It was just
It grew. And I think the one we went to in Seattle was 8. All right, so this is the Linux Foundation, and as you can see here, it's got 48 events, but you can see they come out from different locations around the world. So you can come here and filter out the events. Automotive grade Linux is coming up. It's virtual. That's a tech day on July the 13th. Mentorship here. Open source days. KVM, vector and machine learning. Uh, I don't even know what this one is. This is new. That's going to be at the Hyatt Regency. I have no idea. It's open source program office. I was like, I've never heard of that. API. Um, yeah, of course, you got KubeCon. You got KubeCon on Etch Day. Um, Service Mesh Con, FluentCon, Reactive Summit, the Linux Foundation Legal Summit, BPF, just a slew of just conferences, and this will go all the way out to 2022, right? So just take a look at it. You may be interested in something, and also they have diversity scholarships where you can go for free. All right. Next one I wanted to bring up was open infrastructure. So they launched a couple of lives where you can get into. building the intelligent edge with open source technologies. Here you can see how to find open source job openings, how to start contributing upstream to open infrastructure. And then if you click on their events, you can see their days, their meetups, and so forth. Um, the different projects if you want to host your project, and open source, open development, open community, and open design. I encourage you to join some of these open source projects, whether you attend a meeting once a month or every once in a while, because those people who are working at those on those projects are people that one that are influencing what's coming out next in terms of technology, and there also are people that you can network with for looking for jobs, or if you want to do something on the side. So I encourage you to look at those jobs from that perspective. All right, and last but not least, I've been looking at this, and I want to bring this in is head of leadership. I mean, head of technology at East Market, and this is at ThoughtWorks in Atlanta. I want to um, part of this, maybe part of this series and maybe not part of this series, is start talking about leadership. What does it take to get into leadership? We did a CTO series, but leadership doesn't have to be a CTO. You could be a manager, you could be a lead engineer, you could be building a team. What does it take to build a team? You could be building your own team for your own consulting business, and what does that look like?
You could be a leader in the community, the open source community,
Yep.
your
Um,
community.
yep. And we did that blog special as well too. Um, so here we talk about provide oversight and leadership of existing engagements. I'm looking at evolved discipline here, and what they're looking for you, cultivating talent, leadership expectations, and then they had a list of requirements as well too. But this is over at ThoughtWorks. If you have not checked out ThoughtWorks on YouTube, I refer to them because I like some of the way the way they present topics and ideas, and show you how to implement and then move on from there. That things that you could take away with you, you know, right away. All right, and last but not least, resource. All right, I got a resource here. Let me see what this was. It's a YouTube list. Oh, I know what this was. This is a book I found. I mean, a link. I don't. They hadn't uploaded in a while, but this one right here, self discipline, the neuroscience, and they just have a different group of books on here. How to talk to anyone, how to make people like you, the millionaire next door. Everybody heard that book, and the richest man in Babylon. This is just the audio book. There's a lot of popular things. You can also use Audible as well too. But if you just want to scroll through and just listen to some of these books, you can. All right, let me make sure I cover everything. Um, Tablets, cars, open source day. Yep, I did. I covered everything. I'll have more next week, but this just to give you an idea of topics that I can dive into. I can bring people on. I can talk about jobs. What is somebody's day to day? Who's what next company is? Who's that person's competition, like who's Starlink's competition, and how they're trying to mimic Starlink and the talent that they're looking for. So we can really, I want to leave this show where we can really do a deep dive, and you can post your questions, you can post your comments on like what you think we might have missed industries. And this is by far not all the industries. This is just the tip of the iceberg when we're talking about the different industries where Linux is in. I didn't even go into the healthcare industry. We didn't get into research as well to how high performance computing and research. I didn't even open those doors yet, but you got a glimpse of where we can go with this.
Right. I
Let
want to
me
hear what you're gonna say, though. Bring you in to chat on the show, impromptu stuff. What you guys research out there. I'm pretty sure if you come to our meetups, Women in Linux, that we like to have a discussion. Let's have a dialogue. Yeah, we can tell you what's going on, but what have you discovered?
right.
I am curious to know because we try to give you a 360, but every day is something different.
Right. Dee, if you put the screen back up, this is what I was talking about here. Open HPC community building blocks for HPC systems. And I can go a little deeper into this, but there are people that are giving out scholarships for people to get their masters and PhDs in open HPC. There's a guy that I met at a conference that works with you to help you get your funding for your PhD and help you establish your research around HPC and get funding for that as well too. It's a very big market. Uh, High performance computing is not going anywhere. It's just not. So just little nuances like that we can't really do on tech stocks and jobs because that's a little out the way, and we can't really do it at in our RHCSA study group or when we study on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So this is why I chose this time to kind of just bring out little things, nuances that I talk about, but I can really explore here. That's all I got. I hope this was informative for you. I hope you got
I
some
can't believe it.
ideas.
I know you got more. You
I,
always got more.
I mean, I do, but then if I do, we'll be on here another 2 hours. But
I mean, hey,
let me see, make sure I didn't miss any. Oh, what
there
is?
was a couple of comments in there. We breezed by. I
Okay,
tried to flag you, but I don't. You be on the roll. So
all
I
right.
know the there was
Well,
a
well, the
ask for
website
the website
for the watches.
for the watches.
Um, Let me see. Is it for the watches in terms of
I think
um
it might have been just the screen where you had the watches up there because that's when the comment came over.
I don't know. This one here,
Uh,
is this the one?
I'm assuming so. NC Worker, is that the website that you were looking for? Go ahead and drop us a one in the comments, and I can get that over and post it.
Yeah, and that actually came off of this site here, ITS false asteroids watch, and then if you scroll down a little bit lower, you'll see here's a website of listed of supported watches, and click on the appropriate device to get instructions on how to build that watch, and that's where that came from.
No worries. Go ahead and post that link in the back channel, and I'll get it
And
out there.
also there's a GitHub here too, for that as well.
And for
Um,
those that are on that don't know what GitHub is, can you let them know?
re-
They
uh,
should.
Version control repository is it. I'm not going to even mention GitHub Actions, but that's really what it is. Just a
That's
place where yeah,
just
what
on Wednesday.
yeah, a place where you and your team members, or just you yourself, can hold your actual centralize your actual code itself. We start getting into GitLab and GitHub Actions when we start talking about the runners. Now we can use those runners to do automation to deploy our code to said device or cloud. Here's a $25 open source smart watch for Linux lovers. They got it right here called Pine Time, and you can see the interface and so on. But you can, again, build your own watch. I think that's pretty cool. Let me see what any other comments that I might have missed. I think that was it. That was primarily it. And I thank you all for rocking with us here. Two shows, almost back to back. But I just wanted to get this information out because I think we get stuck when we're talking about, where can I go work at. I didn't even talk about really the race cars themselves, like the BMWs and the higher end, like we saw with the Ferrari, about those cars and how they have Linux in them, and how BMW and Jaguar hire are looking for DevSecOps people. But I'll pull all that stuff up next week, next Saturday, same time, same channel, 2 o'clock. Tell us what you think about the name. Tell us if you think we should call it something else. D, what's the name again?
We had the About Linux is one name, and Linux Takeover is another name. So
And then Kevin mentioned Living Linux. So
Living
let
Linux, I checked. I did a quick check on Living Linux, and somebody already has that URL. So I do not want to get nipped in the bud
right. And do
with
us a
that.
favor. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. On this particular one and the one we did at 11:30. Just let us know, so we can keep our things up, keep our membership growing, get the word out there. Make sure to share this content too. And again, you can share this with kids too. That's what's cool for those that have kids. You want to get them started in the tech early. This is one of those ways where you can get them started early. Like, hey, let's do a project together where we make our own watches, or let's do a project together where we make our own open source toothbrush, right? So just little nuances like that, where it could be a family event where you can start growing and doing things together. All right. Well,
I
until
like
next.
Linux Unlimited. Sasha, that was nice as well. Got to do a little research on it. So I'm excited because next episode we will have a name.
Yeah,
If
we'll have
not
a
by the
name.
end of today.
We'll have a name, and then we got to come up with a logo. We like to do logos on our stuff. When we're doing this, just as separate. I don't know. I don't know. Do we still run our same logo? I don't know. It's all new. This is
Hey,
exclusive. You're like the first people that we did this with. It's something I've been wanting to do. I have. Oh man, I now start talking about Linux and radios.
I know
And
because we could have been really brunching it right now. I could have.
mhm.
We could have been having mimosas and eggs and grits. We could
uh,
have.
Kevin said, Living Linux is available for about 2K.
Well, when you send us your 1999, let me know, Kevin. And your buy-in for that, we're with you.
Hey Darren, how you doing? Might be brash. Yeah, I don't know. We just I just want us to get as many people as we as we can on here to talk about. I mean, I even I even want I even want to do one where we talk about Linux and leadership, especially when we're talking about places like your Stripe and VMware, and leading DevOps teams and so forth. How can you position yourself to do that? Then I wanted another one that I wanted to do was, I just want to do something totally focused on how the hell do you read uh, um, your job offer, right? And let's compare job offers, where we bring people on to talk about from a tax benefit, or you have a CPA live to talk about, and a lawyer live to discuss what how to read your job offer. Like, a lot of people get job offers and don't know how to read them, and what does it mean when you sign this and you sign that. So just when we're talking about this, just different aspects of leadership, job offers, where Linux touches, where you can
Because those
grow, where you
contracts
can
can
go
have
with.
you in indentured servitude if you
Huh? Yeah,
if you let them. Those lawyer words are a little tricky, so make sure that you read those. And if you don't understand something, ask questions or just cut and paste that in the Google,
Yeah.
all things
Or
and
hire a lawyer. Pay the money.
or hire a lawyer. But like I said, if it's something that you don't get and you want to know, just put it in there. And then if you still don't understand, hire a lawyer.
Right. I didn't even we didn't even talk about how Linux has influenced the real estate industry. We
I
didn't
mean,
talk about that.
it's this. That's why it should be like the Linux takeover because it's Linux isn't everything. It's 99.9 of what we got going on right now,
Yeah,
right?
man.
And I think it's really amazing when people discover how much Linux runs your life, how it's
Mm,
an integral part of your everyday. Like if you got any type of smart devices, hey, you're a
be
technologist and you
surprised.
do it.
Be surprised. But that's all we got today. I'm gonna bring. I got more stuff to bring. I've been holding on. I got stuff that I don't even never even talk about that I forget. I'll go back through my notes. I'm like, oh, I should have talked about that. Dang. But I'm excited. I hope you are excited. I hope you got a good information out of this. I hope you got a chance to say, "Oh, I didn't even think about that," or even look into that, or and so forth. Right. So
Yeah. I
until
hope
we
the show
meet,
motivates you to dive in and tell
yeah,
us some stuff about Linux and
yep,
want to for you to take an hour or two and explore and just say, let me see about that and bring it over to the show so we can look it up. I want to see that.
yep. All right. So we're gonna catch you again next week, 11:30 for Tech Stocks and Jobs and Linux Takeover. I think that's gonna be the name.
Maybe
Um,
you got to come up with some more stuff. Let me know. I got the Linux Unlimited. Linux is the ish and live in Linux. So we shall see.
all right. Until we meet again, you all take care.
Thanks.